This is the 10-Minute Contrarian Podcast. This is VP. We are a solutions-based podcast, diving into the world of contrarian investing and alternative finance. You can find us hosted on the No Nonsense Forex YouTube channel, NoNonsenseForex.com, and podcast players everywhere. Episode 238 is brought to us by Bybit. You can trade metals on Bybit as well, and you should, as somebody who's been trading metals for a long time. They are awesome. My Forex trading for 2025 was just okay, but my metals trading was amazing. And sometimes those years are vice versa, but you need to be trading both. Your bottom line depends on it. And why not do it on one of the best platforms of all time? And you get bonuses for it. Go down to the description, click on the Bybit blog. Make sure Bybit is for you. If it is, my affiliate link is at the bottom of that blog. Get yourself signed up, get yourself deposited, get yourself trading, and the rewards will start coming immediately. Because not only can you do all of your trading right there with Bybit membership, also has its rewards. It is the 10-Minute Contrarian Podcast, and let me go ahead and set up how this particular episode is going to go. We're going to do a quick overview and then get right into my prediction for 2026, if anybody cares about that. And then I'm going to talk about gold individually and then silver individually, and then we will get into the miners at the end. But 2025 was a banner year for metals. It just verifies and justifies everything I say on this channel. We invest in things which are inevitable. Now, but you also have to have a 5 to 10 year time horizon because you just don't know when the rest of the world is going to figure out what we have known for years. That's just how it goes. And gold and silver for a long time was a big test of patience, especially when you have the crypto market to contend with. And you see all the great volatility over there. You're sitting there hanging on to gold and silver and you're like, why aren't these things moving? This is stupid. Well, because it is a test of your patience. And if you pass that test, you will be rewarded tremendously like we were in 2025. The world finally figured out what we knew the whole time. These things are rare. These things are valuable. These things are money. And there is no reason not to hold lots of both. You guys know, as far as my entire portfolio goes, I keep right around 25%, if I can, allocation into physical gold itself. And that doesn't even include physical silver and all of my mining positions, which go into the assets category, which compiles another 25%. Yes, it's that important. But to me, it is a perfect combination of upside combined with downside protection. Now, what's interesting is your younger investors, people who might have gotten started in the crypto market, for example, or just people coming over from TradFi and aren't used to seeing crazy volatility like this, or maybe they have, like in the tech sector, for example, they see moves up like we have seen in 2025 with gold and silver, especially silver. And they are getting smarter over time. They're getting more experienced. And they see these moves, and they say to themselves, or they'll tell anybody who's willing to listen on top of that, that these parabolic moves are not sustainable, because if you know what a parabola looks like in geometry, it goes up and then it goes down at the exact same rate it went up. And that is a phenomenon you see all the time in investing. But the difference is those are more speculative runs, like we see in crypto. Most altcoins haven't really done a whole lot yet. There are altcoins out there with finite supply. Bitcoin has finite supply. But we are not to the point where we're actually running out of them. Not yet, at least. So any parabolic move you see in the meantime is just that. It's a spec run. And yes, those are typically going to drop just as fast as they go up. But when you finally get to that point to where people realize what's going on and see that, oh shit, we're running out, like literally, then these moves up are no longer spec runs. Now, might they still be parabolic on the way up and on the way down? Possibly, but the chances go down quite a bit when it goes from no longer being a spec run into an actual commodities squeeze. And gold and silver don't have a hard cap in terms of how much is out there, but there is only so much out there. We're not investing in air. So I wouldn't be surprised if in 2026 we might see a pullback only to make investors think that, yes, it is going down at the same rate it just went up, but just maybe a small to medium-sized pullback just to shake the casuals out before going back up again for good. Or maybe what we're seeing right now is just the very small little retracement. Remember I told you guys on Twitter back when silver price hit $70, I'm like, guys, dumb money is officially entering the game, so expect more volatility than we've been seeing. And that might just be the small correction / consolidation we've been having recently before the next move up. Who knows? But what I will say, and this is, I don't know, it was my most confident prediction last year. I will probably say, just because things are kind of hard to predict in 2026, in my opinion, that it's still going to be my most confident prediction this year as well. But I am not going contrarian here. I'm not going against the grain. I'm going to say up and also up again for gold and silver. So for 2026, up, up. And why wouldn't I? We are running low on these things. With silver in particular, we could be running out. We'll talk about that in a moment, but let's turn to gold. And the big story there, and it's always been the big story because there's just so much of it being bought by sovereign nations. I mean, I don't think people understand just how much money these nations have and how much of it they want to spend on gold. It just dwarfs anything else. Now, you did not have in 2025 the same amount bought by sovereign nations as you did in 2024, but you still had a lot. And does anybody care to guess who the number one country in 2025 was in terms of buying the most gold? There's a reason why I asked this question. It's not like obvious, but if you've been paying attention, you might get it right. And they bought twice as much as country number two. And if you can't guess country number one, you're definitely not getting country number two. I'll just go ahead and say it. Number one was Poland, 83 tons of gold this year. Kazakhstan, a great success with 41 tons of gold this year. And then that was followed by Brazil, Turkey, China, India, 3 BRICS countries, by the way. And not one of these countries has dollar swap line access with the United States. So we all know something is going on there. Countries are preparing for the future, whether that future is something like war, just overall economic uncertainty, or just further migration away from United States dollar dependence or fiat dependence. Because no matter where your fiat currency is in the world, it all goes down against gold. And now almost everybody in the world knows this. At least on the retail level, much of this wasn't true. Most people did not know this because we all grew up, especially if you had a strong currency growing up, that currency was the safest place you could possibly be. It was the least risky place you could possibly be. We now know that all of that was completely wrong. Absolutely nothing goes down over time like fiat currency. And thanks to the miracle of social media, we can all talk to each other now, and we can all share this information with the world, and the world has gotten the message. Remember, and I still think it stands this way now, the world is only 1% allocated to gold overall. Much of this is because the institutions that they have their money with just simply didn't recommend gold hardly at all. Your investment advisors don't make money off of it when they recommend it. That's a big one. A few years ago, when my mother's investment advisor did not recommend gold because he said it was, quote, too risky, LOL, he and I had a little chat that day. And this is further proof that most investment advisors do not do things in their client's best interest. But institutions are figuring out they don't want to be the ones getting left behind when it comes to what is actually in the best interest of most people. So they have all come out and started putting their flags in the ground saying, okay, let's just put it on the record. We do recommend not just gold in your portfolio, but a lot of it. So in 2025, these banks have come out and said this. Bank of America, as big as Bank of America is, has said anywhere from 12 to 20% plus allocation in your portfolio should go to physical gold. Standard Chartered said 7%, UBS 5%, JP Morgan 2% to 10%. Do you guys know how much money is in all four of those banks? Right there. I keep saying this because I just don't think people understand how much money actual countries have to spend on things like this and how the tide is turning so much. I kept saying it with crypto and with metals. All we need is institutional money to come in and start recommending these things, even 1% to 2%, and the entire calculus just completely changes. And not only is it changing in such a way that I couldn't even imagine. I mean, going from 0 to 10%, 20% with banks and institutions this big, and you're not long-term bullish? The hell's the matter with you? Oh, and I should mention, too, of all those countries I listed off, you know who, if they were a country, who would have been number 3 this year in terms of overall gold buying? Tether. My God, if there was a way to invest in Tether, I would have been on that thing a long time ago. There's just unfortunately not. But Tether has a gold product called XAUT. For a long time, it was more of an institutional product to where PAX-G was the more retail product. I have some PAX-G. But now, I think both of them are equally good for retail. And Tether has really, really been loading up. They've been buying tons of gold from the LBMA, and they have bought stake in gold royalty companies as well. What do they have up their sleeve? If you read my blog, and you can subscribe to my blog, the link is in the show notes, I initially thought they were going to try to become the BRICS currency. Turns out that's probably not going to be the case, but that was my idea. But there is a grand play here. Whether it's to offer metals investing with yield attached to it, we still don't really know, but something's going on there. And not only sovereign countries are loading up, Tether's loading up, banks are telling you to load up. Are you really going to go against this? Again, you can still be contrarian here. Most people have not done this yet. It's just simply not in their nature to invest in gold. We're still so early here, contrarians. The world's ultimate defense, physical gold, is now becoming some of the best offense on the board. To me, there is just no better combination of those two things than gold is. And I will continue to be a buyer for a very long time. Well, VP, when are you going to cash out? I might not. If there comes a day where I have the majority of my overall savings denominated in gold, is that really a bad thing? It's better than what most people have right now, having almost all of their savings denominated in fiat. RIP. No, I mean, gold is the shit. It's the most amazing investment vehicle on the planet. That is not going to change, and I just can't see a day where I'm bearish on it, at least not long term. But from here, let's go ahead and rotate over to the belle of the ball in 2025. Gold would have been the belle of the ball had it not been for silver, which saw an even greater rise. And not just that, an absolute mad scramble for countries to get their hands on as much of it as humanly possible. Why? Well, because of everything we've been talking about on this podcast ever since it's been in existence. Silver, apart from being money, apart from being more rare than gold, and in a really small market overall. So everything is going to be more volatile here. If you're a metals trader, you've known this for a long time. But it is the most conductive metal on the planet. It is extremely hard to replace. And if you do so, you will be replacing it with something much less efficient and much less conductive. And you need it really badly for all of the electrification endeavors coming up in the future. You need it for war and all the things that go into war. You need it for a lot of things. And there is just more demand than there is supply. And that is probably not going to change, possibly ever again, contrarians. Think about that. Remember, this is a small market, and you have the two richest countries in the world competing to see who can get the most of it. And then you have other rich countries like Russia, India, Saudi Arabia also trying to get their hands in the pot too. And there's only 13 producers on the planet in terms of actual silver miners. I mean, you're still going to get some offsets from gold and copper and things like that. But all told, it's not much, certainly not enough to keep up with demand. And as price just keeps going up and up, these countries don't care. And a lot of people in these countries, especially countries in East Asia and South Asia, who understand the value of silver, they don't care either. It used to be like India would wait for prices to drop before they bought. Now they're just buying regardless. And that's what happens when things start to run out. As valuable as silver is, not just in terms of money, but especially in terms of its industrial use and the fact that it is the most conductive metal in the world, and we are running out of it, that's a crisis. Maybe we're not seeing it just yet, but I strongly believe that we will see it. People are saying, oh, at what price are you going to get rid of your silver? Again, like gold, I might not. But I have always foreseen a time to where this really gets to be a major world crisis. To the point where we stop minting coins because the world needs the silver so badly for what it's trying to do that we just can't be doing things like minting coins anymore. Things have gotten too critical. That is a world I see happening. And I want to be a holder and an investor for when that time comes. It's not going to be a great time for humanity. I get that. But this is how we protect ourselves from those times. And if you hold physical silver, just know that people, and especially countries, are going to want it. So be very mindful as to where you have it. That might be another episode for another time. But shit has officially gotten real here, contrarians, in 2025. And the world knows it now. And let's not forget this. The whole reason silver isn't already at $500 an ounce is because the large banks have been shorting it for so long. In particular, and it's never a surprise because they do it out loud, JP Morgan, who makes $100 billion a year shorting silver and that gets fined $1 billion, and we act like we should be all happy about that. And the regulator's doing such a great job. But I have said this before. You have to look at both sides. Is $500 an ounce silver good for society? No, it is not. It makes everything more expensive, from the cell phone you buy to the electricity you pay for. So is JP Morgan really this evil, shady, fraudulent company, or are they just simply doing the Lord's work? You have to look at both sides. It's probably a bit of column A and a bit of column B like it is everywhere. But the whole reason I bring this up is JP Morgan is no longer short silver. Those days are officially over. JP Morgan has flipped net long. They still have some short positions out there, but they are now dwarfed by their long positions. Now, there are still other large banks out there who are net short, but the biggest player in the game no longer is. And the price keeps going up, and it's going to, contrarians, because this thing is not getting any less rare. You're going to see these other banks capitulate as well, and they will start going net long because they just simply have no other choice. The one thing that was keeping this market down is not only not keeping this market down anymore, they have flipped to the other side. Again, there are not enough hyperbolic adjectives in the world for me to describe how big this is. You have to be able to see this for yourself. I hope you can. But in terms of what it's going to do in 2026, we are going to have more volatility because it is just a more volatile market, and we have more casual money in the game right now. But silver does have something that gold doesn't have, and that is the whole story that we are literally running short on it. You still have the Ponzi scheme that is the COMEX and the LBMA and maybe Shanghai, and those are the only 3 bullion banks in the world, at least the only ones worth noting. And they are all running out of silver. There may even be a time to where they break that trust with their clients and say, look, man, we can't give you the silver. We can just simply give you the cash it's worth. And investors are not going to be okay with that. But it's probably going to happen because this is where a lot of physical silver ETFs have their money stored. And so that silver is going to have to go to them first. And remember, these bullion banks don't have enough silver to satisfy everybody who invested silver into the bank. So if you're not an issuer of one of these ETFs, you are lower priority. Let's just say that. And if the silver's not there and these ETFs have higher priority than you do for life, how else are you getting it? It's not there. And now that the cat is officially out of the bag, and sovereign nations know this, and institutions know this, and now retail knows this, how is the cat ever going to get back in the bag? How is this situation ever going to resolve itself? How is this situation ever going to get nothing but worse over time? It's already getting worse, at a rapid rate too. Thank God for Twitter and independent media, or else you would never know about this. There's way too much motivation out there for you not to know about what's going on. But unfortunately for them, we all do. And it's bad. Bad if you don't hold silver. So maybe you should. Again, with gold and silver, to me, there is no bad time to buy. My overall price outlook long-term is so far into the stratosphere that I would hate to be somebody who thinks they are skilled enough to know when price is going to drop, that they are sitting there waiting for those price drops. You are literally picking up pennies in front of a steamroller. Like, don't do that. One, that's total mushy middle behavior. That's not us. That's not what we do. If something is inevitable, we just buy it. And then if price drops, we DCA into our positions. But we do not get caught empty-handed. And I hope nobody listening to the sound of my voice right now is going to get caught empty-handed when it comes to gold and when it comes to silver. Not official financial advice. But that's a big question now. They're like, oh, God, it's moved up so much. Should I buy some? Yes, you should always buy some. You casual? Do you really think you're going to be able to time this market? And like we say all the time, okay, so price does drop. Then what are you going to do? You're probably going to just sit there and think it's going to drop farther. You're going to keep sitting on your hands. You're going to be wrong. And then price is going to go to all-time highs again without you. Do not be that person. You know, this is a different subject for a different time, but one of the best things I did back in 2025 is bought more Bitcoin at 120K. Your average casual is going to think that's stupid. No, I just wanted the Bitcoin. I don't care what the price is. I am stockpiling as much of these things away as I possibly can for the future because I cannot predict the future 100%. Done pretty well so far. But what I do know is I would much rather have these things as opposed to fiat currency in the future because we all know what fiat currency does, right? Like, contrarians, now is not the time to get cute. You know, just buy it now. And if price drops, great, buy more. This is the approach we've taken with everything here so far. But with things like gold, silver, and Bitcoin, it's just too important to sit around and wait for price drops that may never come. So I highly, highly, highly recommend you hold physical gold and physical silver. I have both myself. Other ways to play it with higher risk, but with incredible upside to where I think the risk is 100% justified. And I'm glad I've always thought this way because I've had an amazing 2025 on the blog. I had a blog post called It Can Be Done. If you want to see what my stock portfolio actually looked like, I recorded it and I put it on that blog. And much of my success there was due to the mining sector. Now, if you don't have a lot of exposure here and you want some or you want some more, again, I just don't feel like there's ever a bad time to do this. I understand miners are going to have their day where it's going to pull back hard, whatever. But if gold and silver are going to do nothing but go up and you want to play the upside, miners are absolutely the best way, and there's different levels of risk here, as we know. The majority of you have mining ETFs, as do I, and this is really the best set it and forget it play on the board. You're not going to get as much upside as you will with individual companies, but the gains have been so great, it's like nobody even cares. And what's interesting too is you're going to see these periods of time kind of like we're having now with silver, in my opinion, to where it doesn't seem like the miners are giving you the asymmetrical upside they should be giving you because the underlying metal has gone up so much. You would think these miners would give you at least double, maybe triple that. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. You just have to know that these things within the actual sector are also cyclical. They might not be giving you that now. But as we've seen in 2025, when they do, they really do. And you just have to make sure you're around for that. And the ETFs have been great. I have exposed my two main gold and silver miner ETFs to you guys, GDX on the gold side and SLVP on the silver side. But there's really not a bad way you can go here as long as you know what you're investing in. For example, SLVP actually has a decent amount of gold exposure in it. And I like that because numerically I have more silver miners than I do gold miners. So I want a little extra gold exposure there. I also like it because it gives me a lot of silver producers that I don't already have in my portfolio. And I think that's great because now I have exposure in some form to almost all of the major silver producers out there, while also giving me a bit of gold exposure. If you pay attention to what you're owning, there is going to be a mining ETF out there for you. But again, don't go blindly here. I said it before, we have a lot of casuals coming into this market or people who are investors but just not in this space, and they've gotten a bit lazy with it. I know a lot of people, we had a whole episode dedicated to spiders ETFs on this show. It wasn't that long ago, if you want to look it up. That was some good alpha in that episode. If you have the time, go download that one and listen to it if you haven't yet. But there is a spider ETF called XME. It is a metals and mining ETF. And a lot of people just dumped money into XME, and XME has actually done pretty well. Now, spiders don't go up as much as a lot of other ETFs go, but when you're a more conservative investor, that might be a good thing. Here's the problem with XME, though. It's going up, and that's great. But if you understand that particular ETF, you also understand that it's mostly coal and steel exposure, not gold and silver. I mean, there's gold and silver there, but you might not be getting what you thought you were getting out of it. So as is the case with anything you invest in, know what you own, and that also goes for ETFs. Even though they've done a lot of the work for you, you still need to know what's in them. Now, if anybody out there is looking for maybe one ETF to give you gold and silver miner exposure, again, you're going to get some of this with things like GDX. But if you're looking for an ETF that was designed to give you gold and silver miners exposure, again, not an official recommendation, but there is a Sprott product out there. Ticker symbol GBUG, so gold bug. I think it kind of misdirects people into thinking that it's strictly a gold miners ETF. It is not. It is, I wouldn't say equal parts, but it is designed to give you gold mining exposure and silver mining exposure as well. And to my knowledge, it is the only ETF out there designed to do that specific thing. And it is also designed to rebalance depending on which sector is doing better at the time. So if you feel like you're a little short on the miner ETF front and you would rather buy one instead of two, at least give that a look, check under the hood, see what it's holding, and see if you like it. But if you feel like you are savvy and or daring enough to go for the actual miners themselves, just know there's still some value out there. I think in particular in the gold mining space, there are companies that are called optionality plays. And I've mentioned this before. These are companies that may have low grades or may have had something happen to them in the past that made price get depressed. And as a result, there is still value there. And they will, all these companies right now, contrarians, they are all printing money. It does not matter who they are. The price of gold and silver is so high right now that one, People are worried about the price of oil when it comes to mining stocks. Those days are gone. Gold and silver are at such high prices, the price of oil could triple and it would not matter at all in terms of the bottom line for these companies. So if you can find any of them, even if they're low grade or some of the mines they own may have permitting issues, like it doesn't matter. I mean, it does, but the reason why prices might be a bit depressed, but as long as the gold price keeps going up, they're going to do well. I have one myself. I bought it early last year, and it's only up like 35%, which is not much. And I like it. I'm hanging on to it. So I know these plays exist, and mining stocks are finally on the public's radar. So I'm very bullish on the future of some of these. Another way to catch value in these while we're here is something I tweeted out about a month ago. I think it's like, look, when you see a drop in the price of the metal itself, immediately go and look at some of the mining stocks. Sometimes they will have drops themselves that are so irrational that you might be able to pick them up at prices we haven't seen for months. I mean, these things might drop down to like September, October 2025 prices for no real good reason. Sweet divergence. All because of the volatility in some of these stocks. Very similar to what we see in the crypto market sometimes. So if you're unhappy with your current mining stock allocation, please consider all of these things. And one more thing to consider, actually, while we're here. Might as well mention this now. And as an anti-socialist, I don't love this, but the Trump administration has been buying stake in American companies they find to be important and critical in many cases to make sure they always stay healthy. Intel was one of them recently. And word is they're going to be looking for more metals companies to do this with as well, even though the metals companies really don't need the help. But the United States will be willing to do this anyway, mainly to prevent foreign investment from taking over, which, again, these markets are so small that doing something like this is a lot more possible, which is probably going to be their justification for doing this. Again, you can decide if this is a good idea or not, or if you like it. Again, I don't love it, but if this is the world we're going to be in going forward, maybe it will turn out to be a good idea. I don't know. But from the investor side, in terms of silver companies, there are not many American ones. They might have mines in the United States, but that is not where they're headquartered. That is not where they're domiciled. One in particular, however, is a company I own, and that is Coeur. Coeur, something like that. Ticker symbol CDE. You can't miss it. Now, I did not actually invest in Coeur. I can't pat myself on the back too much for that. But I was an investor in a company called Silvercrest Mining, and they got bought out. And that was one of the best, luckiest things ever to happen to me because I got 1.6 to 1 shares of Coeur to my Silvercrest shares because of this acquisition. But they are a very major player. They are based in Chicago. And I'm just putting it out there, this might be a story in either 2026 or 2027. If you're stuck deciding on which major producer to buy, because look, when it comes to silver, you're going to want producers because there just are not that many of them. And because of that, there's just less risk here than there would be on the juniors. In my portfolio, I'm only sitting on one junior right now. One of my juniors became a mid-tier producer. And the rest are just silver producers, and I'm super happy with that. So just remember, when it comes to ETFs and big producers, you don't have to go too far up the risk curve here in the silver market. Silver already gives you so much upside, as is. There's zero reason to get cute. Stick with ETFs, stick with the big producers, do that in gold too. Maybe look for some optionality plays there if you're really looking for value. And be mindful of the drops in the metals prices. Because some of the miners, especially the juniors, could end up dropping at very irrational rates, thus providing sweet divergence for you. But contrarians, that's the playbook for gold and silver for 2026. At least it is for me. I thought I would share this with you. Oddly enough, for the longest time, of all 4 predictions episodes I do, gold and silver has always been the one that was the least downloaded. up until 2025. Then out of nowhere, it became the most, even more than the big macro episode. It's almost like you guys were onto something. Well done, contrarians. You guys weren't crazy. You were just early.